The wire is rusted. It bites into my palms, but it has to hold. Today, the air feels heavy, too heavy for a desert. Rusty feels it too. He hasn't moved for 10 minutes. He's watching the horizon, waiting for the change. Then comes the noise. 2 engines screaming, tearing through the silence. They're moving fast, way too fast for what's coming. I step out. I raise my hand. I don't need a badge for them to see I'm serious. Turn back, I tell them. The clouds are breaking at the headwaters. This place will be a river in an hour. He just laughs. 80 horses under me, Pops. We'll be through the Narrows before the first drop hits. They don't listen. They never do. Adrenaline makes people stupid, and the desert doesn't forgive stupidity. 40 minutes. That's all they have. I check my watch. The countdown has already started. The sky goes black. The wind dies down. That's the scariest part, the silence before the roar. I know the speed of the flow. If they're in the Narrows, they're trapped. Let's go, Rusty. Time to do our job. Thank you for being here. Please subscribe and like this video. Before we continue, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments so I know who's listening. The first wash is already flowing. It's faster than I expected. The truck groans as the mud pulls at the tires, but I can't stop here. If the road washes out behind me, we're on our own. I keep the revs high and push through the sludge. I find it near the canyon entrance, a deep groove in the softening clay. One of them skidded here, probably trying to show off with a power slide. It's fresh. The edges of the track haven't collapsed under the rain yet. They're less than 10 minutes ahead of me. Find him, Rusty. He doesn't need the command twice. He catches the scent of burnt rubber and high-octane fuel. It's a sharp, chemical smell that cuts through the wet earth. He tugs at the lead, pulling me toward the narrowest part of the stone walls. The Narrows. In a dry season, it's a hiker's paradise. Right now, it's a funnel for 10,000 tons of water. My boots sink into the silt with every step. I check the high water marks on the stone. Old debris caught 10 feet up. It happens in seconds. I'm not here to play hero with fancy gadgets. I've got a rope, some hardware, and my experience. I prep a glow stick and tuck it into my vest. If the light goes, I need to know where the ground is. Every movement is deliberate, practiced over years of service. The path is gone. The rising silt has turned the trail into a slide. I have to move to the upper ledge, but the rock is slick as ice. I find a solid crack and wedge my boot in. It's about balance and knowing where the weight goes. One slip and I'm a statistic. Rusty is better at this than I am. He finds the grip I can't see. He's a veteran, just like me. He knows the stakes. He reaches the ledge and looks back, waiting for me to catch up. We move as one unit, a machine built for this terrain. Lightning rips the sky open. For a heartbeat, the world is white. There, 500 yards in, a splash of blue. Metal against stone. It's one of the quads. It's upright, but there's no one on it. The water is already swirling around its tires. We're running out of time. The roar is deafening now. It's not just water. It's a grinding slurry of mud, trees, and stone. I look down at the blue quad. It's gone in seconds, swallowed by the surge. If they stayed with their machines, they're dead. But I don't see bodies. I see something else. A discarded helmet, bright yellow, wedged in a high crevice 40 feet ahead. They didn't just run, they climbed. But the path they took leads to a dead end, a vertical chimney that fills up like a pipe. I spot them. Two shadows pressed into a vertical slit in the canyon wall. They made it out of the main flow, but they're in a chimney, a narrow vertical shaft that drains the plateau above. Water is already cascading down on top of them from the cliffs, and the flood from below is rising to meet it. They're trapped in a vise. One of them isn't moving right. He's slumped against the rock while the other tries to hold him up. They have no gear, no lights, and no way out. Radio's dead. The canyon walls are too thick, and the storm is too heavy. No one is coming to help us. I look at the distance between my ledge and their crevice. It's a 60-foot gap across a boiling cauldron of mud. There's no way to walk there, and the rock above them is a sheer overhang. I can't rappel down to them, and I can't throw a line that far against this wind. I've spent 20 years solving problems, but the math on this one doesn't look good. I look at my partner. Rusty isn't just a dog. He's a K9 veteran with more mountain hours than most rangers. He's light, he's fast, and he has claws that can find grip on wet glass. I look at the narrow, crumbling spine of rock that bridges the gap toward the top of their chimney. It's too thin for a man. It would snap under my weight. But a dog might make it. I hate the thought of sending him out there, but he's the only bridge we have left. Listen to me, buddy, I whisper. This has to be perfect. No second chances. I'm not talking to a pet. I'm talking to a soldier. I secure the line and check the knots. The paracord is rated for 2,000 pounds, but it feels like a thread in this wind. Rusty licks my hand once, then turns his gaze to the rock spine. He knows. He's already measuring the jumps. He's waiting for the tap on his shoulder, the signal that sends him into the dark. The wall of water below us just got higher. A massive log hammers into the cliffside, shaking the ground under my boots. The boys in the chimney scream, but the sound is swallowed by the roar. There's no more time for logic or planning. I feel the tension in Rusty's body. He's a coiled spring. I take a breath, let it out, and give him the command. Go, Rusty, work! He vanishes into the gray mist before I can even blink. I watch him through the rain, a small shadow against the roar of the abyss. My heart is in my throat, but my hands stay steady on the line. Rusty doesn't hesitate. He moves with the fluid precision of a predator. He reaches the far side, his claws find purchase in the crumbling sandstone, and he hauls himself up onto the ledge above the chimney. He's across. I give the line a sharp tug, our signal. Now the real work begins. He has to find an anchor, something that can hold more than just his weight. I see him disappear behind a jagged outcrop of rock. He's searching for anything solid in this crumbling world. The boy in the crevice is looking at me, his eyes wide with a mix of hope and disbelief. He doesn't understand yet that his life is currently tied to the collar of a Belgian Malinois. I feel the wind trying to rip the cord from my frozen fingers, but I hold. We both hold. This is the moment where the training takes over and the fear is pushed into a small box at the back of my mind. There is only the line, the dog, and the goal. I see what he's doing through the lenses. There's an old juniper, its roots deep in the bedrock, tough as iron and gnarled by centuries of desert wind. Rusty circles it once, twice, 3 times. He's using his body as a winch, wrapping the paracord around the trunk with a level of intelligence that still surprises me after all these years. It's a trick we practiced for fun in the training camp, a way to secure a perimeter. But now it's the only thing keeping those kids from being washed into the Gulf of California. I feel the line go taut, vibrating like a guitar string under the tension. He's locked it. I tie my end to a heavy steel spike I've driven into the crevice. We have a bridge, a thin, vibrating line of hope stretched over the death trap. The water is screaming below us, but the orange line stays true. I check the knot one last time, pulling it with my full body weight. It doesn't budge. Rusty is up there, leaning back, using his weight to keep the coils tight. He knows exactly what's at stake. I hook my main carabiner to the guideline and push off into the void. The wind tries to spin me like a top, but I keep my eyes locked on the chimney. Below me, the water has risen another foot, turning the bottom of the canyon into a churning whirlpool of brown death. It's licking at the boots of the boy holding his friend, a cold reminder that time is a luxury we no longer possess. They see me coming now, their faces illuminated by the occasional flash of lightning. Their eyes are wide, white circles of pure terror in the dark, reflecting the green glow of the chem light on my chest. "Don't move!" I roar over the roar of the flood. "I'm coming to you. Stay exactly where you are." I reach the edge of their narrow prison, my boots skidding on the rock slick with moss and ice-cold runoff. I have to be fast. The juniper root is strong, but the soil around it is turning to soup. Every second I spend suspended here is another second we risk total collapse. I can hear the rock groaning under the pressure of the rising tide. Inside the crevice, the air smells like wet stone and adrenaline. It's worse than I thought. The injured one has a compound fracture. His leg was crushed when the quad flipped against the wall. He's in deep shock, his skin clammy and cold, slipping in and out of consciousness. The other boy is hysterical, his voice a high-pitched babble about how they just wanted a cool video for their followers, how they thought they were faster than the weather. I don't listen to the excuses. I don't have the time to judge them. I focus on the buckles, my fingers moving with a memory of their own. I strap the injured kid into the rescue harness, making sure it's snug enough to support him, but loose enough not to cut off what little circulation he has left. He's dead weight now. I look up at the ledge where Rusty is. Through the mist, I can see the dog's silhouette, leaning back with all his might, his paws braced against a stone lip. He is the anchor that holds this entire rescue together. Without him, we are just 3 more bodies for the river. I start the haul, and the world shrinks to the size of a pulley and a rope. Every inch is a brutal battle against gravity and the slick, unforgiving rock. The injured boy groans as the harness bites into his torso, but he's too weak to give a real scream. I keep my eyes locked on the orange line. If that juniper root snaps, or if Rusty loses his footing for even a second, we all fall into the surge below. I can see the dog's paws digging deeper into the mud and gravel above. He's not just a dog right now. He's a living, breathing winch, a partner who refuses to let go. My muscles are screaming, burning with the cold and the sheer physical effort of lifting another human being while suspended in midair. I use my legs to push off the wall, guiding the kid away from the sharp edges that would shred his gear. We're halfway there. The water below is a monster, reaching for us with white foam and the sound of crushing timber, but the line holds. It's a game of simple physics and sheer, stubborn human and canine will. I reach the ledge, my fingers screaming as they scrape against the sandstone. They're numb from the cold, but the adrenaline keeps them moving like mechanical claws. I find a solid anchor point and haul the injured boy over the lip first, rolling him onto the flat stone with a heavy thud. He's safe for now, though his breathing is shallow and ragged. I don't give myself a second to rest. I turn back to the dark chimney, looking down at the second boy. He's paralyzed, his eyes fixed on the rising tide that is now swirling around his chest. "Grab the line!" I roar at him, my voice cracking from the effort. I don't have the physical strength left for another slow, methodical haul. He has to find his own will to live. I see him hesitate, his body shaking with terror. Then something snaps. He reaches out and grips the orange paracord like it's the hand of God itself. I start pulling, feeling the raw friction burn through what's left of my gloves. My palms are a mess, but I don't feel the pain. In this moment, there is only the weight and the rhythm of the survival. The second boy rolls onto the stone, gasping and shivering. He's alive, but he's a broken shadow of the arrogant kid I saw earlier. He collapses next to his friend, burying his face in his hands, his sobs lost in the roar of the canyon. I collapse against the rock wall behind them, my lungs burning as if I've inhaled molten lead. My heart is hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Then, I hear the sound of 4 paws on the stone. Rusty. He finally lets go of the line. The juniper held, he held. He approaches me slowly, his chest heaving with exhaustion, his beautiful coat matted with thick gray clay. He doesn't bark. He just nudges my hand with his cold, wet nose. I reach out with my trembling fingers and scratch him behind the ears. "Good job, partner," I wheeze, the words barely a whisper. We aren't out of danger yet. The plateau above us is a freezing, muddy swamp, and the sun is long gone. But the immediate threat of the water is now 20 feet below us. I look at the boys. They are staring at Rusty in total silence, as if they're looking at a miracle they don't quite deserve. I stand up and look out over the rim. The canyon is unrecognizable. The peaceful, ancient desert has been replaced by a violent, primeval force that doesn't care about trails or tourists. In the far distance, maybe 5 miles toward the south rim, I see a thin finger of light cutting through the clouds. A search and rescue helicopter. They're out there, but they're searching the main wash where the quads were likely last seen. They don't know we're up here. I check my gear. No flares left, and my radio is a useless piece of plastic soaked in silt. I have to get these kids to my truck before hypothermia sets in. The temperature is plummeting, and the rain is starting to turn into sharp, stinging sleet. I look at the injured boy. He can't walk, which means I'll have to carry him through 3 miles of mud and jagged rock. This is the breaking point for most people. This is where logic says to wait for help, but experience says that waiting is just a slow way to die. We have to move. I don't waste my breath on a lecture. There will be time for that later, if we make it. I find 2 sturdy pieces of driftwood that the wind must have tossed up here during a previous storm. I lay them out and begin to weave a litter using the remaining orange paracord. My movements are slow, hampered by the cold, but they are methodical, a skill burned into my brain from my days as a combat medic. I weave the cord tight, creating a mesh that will support the boy's weight without sagging. The boys watch me in total silence. The arrogance is gone, replaced by a hollow, haunting realization of their own mortality. They're seeing a professional at work, and they finally understand that the world isn't a playground. I finish the last knot, a secure fisherman's bend, and test the tension. It holds. "You," I say, pointing to the uninjured one. "You take the back. I take the front. We move slow, we move steady. If you stumble, don't you dare let go of that handle." We begin the march. Every step is a heavy, sucking thud in the thick muck. The boy behind me is shaking so hard I can feel it through the wooden poles, his grip slipping constantly. but he's holding on with everything he has. Rusty is 10 paces ahead of us, acting as our point man. He's marking the safest path through this lightning-scarred terrain, sniffing out the spots where the ground is solid rock and avoiding the mud traps that could snap an ankle. I look down at the kid on the litter. His eyes are squeezed shut against the sleet, his face a mask of pale exhaustion, but he's still with us. I can feel the old weight in my shoulders, a burden I've carried 100 times before in places far worse than this. This isn't about social media or adrenaline or proving who's the fastest. This is about the simple, quiet duty of bringing everyone home. The desert is eerily silent now, save for our ragged breathing and the distant, fading roar of the flood below. We are just shadows moving through the dark. The lights of the truck look like a miracle. They're just two dull yellow orbs cutting through the soup of the fog, but to those boys, they might as well be the gates of heaven. My boots feel like they're made of lead, and every muscle in my back is screaming in a language I've forgotten how to speak. I can feel the boy at the back of the stretcher stumbling more frequently now. His spirit is spent. His body is just a machine running on fumes. Almost there, I growl, not because I want to encourage him, but because I need to hear it myself. Rusty is already at the tailgate, his tail giving a single weary wag. He's done his part. He led us through a maze of collapsing washes and slick rock traps that would have swallowed us whole if we'd made one wrong turn. I look at the odometer of my life in this moment. Years of service, dozens of rescues, and I realize it's the quiet ones like this that stay with you. Not the ones with the cameras and the medals, but the ones in the mud where the only witness is a dog and the rain. We reach the truck, and the silence that follows the stopping of our movement is heavier than the storm itself. I lower my end of the litter with a precision that comes from 1,000 repetitions. We're not safe yet, but the walk is over. Now comes the long drive to the paved road and the waiting ambulances. The heater in the truck is working overtime, blowing hot, dry air that smells of old dust and coffee. It's the sweetest smell in the world right now. I've managed to get both boys inside. The injured one is stabilized in the back seat, wrapped in every emergency blanket I own, and the other is sitting up front, staring at the windshield with hollowed-out eyes. He hasn't said a word since we reached the plateau. The shock is finally settling in, replacing the adrenaline with a cold, hard truth. I look at him and see a kid who started the day thinking he was invincible, and who is ending it knowing he is fragile. I reach for my thermos, my hands shaking so much I can barely unscrew the cap. I offer it to him. He takes it with trembling fingers, the metal clinking against his teeth. "Drink," I say. It's not a suggestion. I look down at Rusty. He's already asleep, his paws twitching as he chases something in his dreams. Maybe he's back on that ledge, holding the line. I feel a surge of pride that I can't quite put into words. People talk about heroism like it's a choice you make. But for us, it's just the logic of the situation. You see a problem, you calculate the risk, and you apply the solution. The logic of a survivor is simple. You don't stop until the job is done. I put the truck in gear and feel the tires bite into the sludge. The journey back will be slow, but the direction is certain. The road doesn't want to let us go. Every mile is a negotiation with the elements. I feel the steering wheel fighting me, vibrating as the tires struggle to find grip in the clay that has turned into a thick, red soup. I have to stay focused. One wrong move, one moment of fatigue-driven carelessness, and the truck slides into the ravine. I find myself talking to the machine, a low murmur under my breath. as if it's another member of the team. The boy in the passenger seat is watching my hands. He's seeing the constant, tiny corrections, the way I feather the brakes and play with the throttle. It's a dance of physics that he never saw in his high-speed videos. I'm looking for the logic in the chaos, reading the flow of the water across the track, spotting the stones that are large enough to provide traction, but small enough not to high-center us. My eyes are burning, the salt from my sweat stinging the small cuts on my face. I think about the investigators who will come here later to look at the wreckage of the ATVs. They'll see the tracks and wonder how anyone survived. They won't see the dog or the paracord. They'll just see the cold evidence of a miracle. I shift into a lower gear, feeling the engine roar in defiance against the slope. We are moving forward, one agonizing yard at a time. I pull over where the ground feels a bit more solid. I need to check the patient. The injured boy is drifting. His pulse is fast and thready, classic signs of a body trying to compensate for trauma. I adjust the emergency blanket, tucking it tighter to trap whatever heat he has left. He opens his eyes for a split second, a hazy blue gaze that doesn't quite land on me. "We're almost out," I say, my voice firmer than I actually feel. I check the second boy. He's looking at his hands, turning them over as if they belong to someone else. He's seeing the grime, the small scratches, the reality of the desert. He looks at me, and for the first time, I see a spark of genuine curiosity instead of ego. "How did you know?" he asks, his voice barely a whisper. I don't answer right away. I look at the dark road ahead, then at Rusty, who hasn't even opened an eye. I knew because I've spent 20 years learning the language of this place. I knew because the desert always tells you what it's going to do. You just have to be humble enough to listen. I tell him to keep talking to his friend, to keep him awake. It's a task to keep his mind from spiraling. I get back behind the wheel. The logic of the investigation starts to form in my mind, not for a police report, but for the lesson I'll have to give them once they can hear it. The first sight of the asphalt feels like stepping back into civilization. The mud ends abruptly, and the tires hum on the pavement, a sound of safety. The flashing lights are blinding after hours of darkness, casting long, rhythmic shadows of red and blue across the canyon walls. I pull over, and before the engine even stops, the paramedics are there. Their movements are a sharp contrast to the slow, heavy slog we just endured. They are fast, precise, and loud. I step out of the cab, and the cold air hits me, but it doesn't feel threatening anymore. I watch them slide the injured boy out of the back. He's stable, his eyes open just enough to see the lights. The other boy steps out, blinking, his legs shaking as he stands on solid ground. He looks at the ambulance, then back at my dusty truck. He realizes that the invisible line between a fun weekend and a tragedy was crossed miles ago, and the only reason he's standing here is because of a series of logical choices and a dog that didn't know how to quit. I lean against the door, my body finally allowing itself to feel the weight of every mile. The emergency crew asks for a report, but my mind is still back in the Narrows, listening to the roar of the water. I catch the uninjured boy's shoulder before he climbs into the back of the ambulance. He looks up at me, and the defiance I saw at the fence is completely gone. There's a hollow space in his expression where his ego used to be. "Listen to me," I say, my voice low and gravelly. "The desert didn't try to kill you tonight. It just followed its own rules. You're the one who tried to break them." He nods slowly, a single tear cutting a clean path through the grime on his cheek. "I'm not interested in an apology. I'm interested in the lesson. I tell him that every choice has a shadow, a consequence that follows it into the dark. He looks at my shredded gloves, then at Rusty, who is sitting calmly by my side, watching the scene with ancient, knowing eyes. "Thank him," I say, nodding toward the dog. The boy reaches out, his hand trembling, and lets Rusty sniff his knuckles. It's a silent exchange, a moment of recognition between a survivor and the one who ensured he survived. "Go on," I tell him. "Go get checked out." I watch the ambulance doors close, sealing them away from the cold. The investigation is over. The logic held. The result is life. I sit on the tailgate and feel the cold metal through my trousers. It's the first time in hours I haven't been moving, and the exhaustion hits me like a physical blow to the chest. I pull off the gloves. They've done their job, but my hands pay the price. Raw, stinging, and stained with the red silt of the canyon. I look at them and think about the logic of a grip. In the end, everything comes down to what you can hold on to when the world tries to wash you away. Rusty is quiet now, his breathing deep and rhythmic. He's already processed the trauma and moved on to recovery. Dogs are better at that than we are. They don't carry the what-ifs like a heavy pack. I watch the red lights of the ambulance disappear around the bend. Those boys will have scars. Some you can see, and some you can't. They'll remember the sound of the water and the feel of the orange cord. My investigation into their choices is over, but their own internal trial is just beginning. I reach down and touch Rusty's head. His fur is still damp, smelling of ozone and desert rain. We did what we were meant to do. No more, no less. I find a piece of the wreckage at my feet. A camera. Small, expensive, and completely broken. It's the silent witness to their near disaster, a device meant to capture a thrill that turned into a nightmare. I look at the cracked glass and realize that the logic of the modern world is often at odds with the logic of nature. They wanted the image, the proof of their courage, but the desert only wanted their compliance. I set it on the bumper. Someone might come back for it, or the next flood will take it back into the depths. It doesn't matter to me. I'm thinking about the return trip, about the warmth of my cabin and the meal I'll share with my partner. The drama is over, the adrenaline has cleared, and all that's left is the reality of the night. I open the driver's door and whistle softly. Rusty jumps in with a newfound burst of energy, taking his spot on the passenger side. He's ready to go home. I take one last look at the canyon. It's dark now, a silent, ancient void that has already forgotten we were even there. The road ahead is clear. The storm is breaking, moving east toward the high plateaus. I feel the steady vibration of the engine, a comforting hum that signals the end of the shift. My mind starts to drift toward the next day, the repairs I'll need to make to the fence, the cleaning of the gear. The logic of life is continuity. We survive the crisis so we can return to the routine. I look at the moon reflected in the puddles on the asphalt. It's a cold, indifferent light, the same light that watched the flood rise and fall. It doesn't judge, and neither does the desert. Only we do that. I've spent my life in these shadows, and I've learned that the only thing you can truly rely on is the preparation you do when the sun is shining. Tomorrow, I'll be back at the fence, tightening the wire, watching the horizon. Because the desert doesn't change, and neither does the job.